Meanwhile, the FBI warns of possible armed protests at all 50 state capitals in the coming days and in Washington leading up to President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration next Wednesday. The agency says an armed group is also threatening to go to D.C. and stage an uprising if the president is removed from office.
All of this is coming as we learn more about 4 men with Georgia ties arrested in connection with the riot and threats against lawmakers. Joe Hankey has the latest.
This is Cleveland Meredith Jr., originally of the Atlanta area, photographed in June near a Black Lives Matter rally in Hiawassee. The FBI arrested him Thursday in Washington, D.C. The Department of Justice charging him with making threats to Speaker Nancy Pelosi after he allegedly sent text messages saying he wanted to shoot her on live TV. He reportedly arrived in D.C. the day after the siege, and law enforcement says they found 3 guns and hundreds of rounds of ammo in his trailer. Today, the Lovett School in Atlanta confirmed Meredith graduated from the school in 1986, but Lovett severed its relationship with this alumnus and banned him from campus in 2019 due to threats of violence. The school did not release specifics, though. 53-year-old Christopher Stanton, Georgia, was arrested in D.C. with federal court records stating he unlawfully entered the Capitol grounds on January 6th and violated D.C.'s district-wide curfew. An Alpharetta police report states Georgia died at his home Saturday. Police took 2 rifles, but the cause of Georgia's death has not been released. 65-year-old Grant McHoyt Moore of Buford, charged with carrying a pistol without a license, was arrested blocks from the U.S. Capitol and minutes past the district's curfew on the 6th. Court records quote Moore is telling an officer he is one of these while pointing to a red MAGA hat on his van's dashboard and admitting to having a gun and ammunition in the van in violation of local laws. And known on social media as Zip Tie Guy after being photographed in the Capitol carrying zip ties, Eric Munchell was arrested Sunday in Nashville. He is charged with illegally entering the U.S. Capitol building. Fulton and DeKalb County court records show at one time Munchell lived in Dunwoody, faced misdemeanor drug and vehicle charges in both counties, and was charged with battery in Fulton in 2013. And we have more details on each of these 4 men and their individual arrests right now on 11alive.com.
Joe, thanks a lot.